I'm going to make some people mad here. This is not a musical set. The P8 is absolutely worth the money. In the P8, if you're, again, looking for a monitor-like set that wasn't massive kilo buck and to do what these do, it's a really good value. P8 isn't for, treble heads, and it's not for bass heads, and it's not definitely for vocal heads. Making it the absolute best value for a monitor like I am on the market in 2023. What the hell does that mean? Hello once again, this is the Tone Deaf Monk. Let's have a bit of a conversation. Well, not so much a conversation as me talking and you listening. And today let's talk a little bit about AFUL Performer8. Not going to mention anything about the name. Moving on. This is a really cool one. It has a whole lot of technology, and let's dive into that, shall we? Let's go. 8 drivers per side, 16 in total. Again, thank you Sesame Street and the Count Dracula. One dynamic driver happens to be 8 millimeters, 7 balanced armatures, unknown manufacturer, and I think that's important. They're custom balanced armatures. 4 are going to be for the mids, actually. 2 for lower mids, which is kind of interesting. 2 for the upper mids, and 3 for the high frequencies. They use very long acoustic 3D printed tube structures. I love when manufacturers spew out features. Here's a feature, here's a feature, here's a feature. And is it supposed to impress you? Because a whole bunch of features without the advantage to you and the benefit to you is really just useless marketing speak. But it's in this entire world, there's very few places that get that part of the sales and marketing. Ultra long, low frequency acoustic tube. RLC network frequency division correction technology, the crossover. High dampening air pressure balance technology. They go on. Anyway, if we wanted to dive into this a little bit, why the 3D printed tubes? Well, it just makes sense economically wise. It is, if they invested, which they did, in higher technology in order to print these shells, then they would save money on production, and it'd make it affordable. It's the same as using these 7 custom balanced armatures. If you were to use, say, Knowles or Sonyan, it would bump up the cost. Instead, they've done, I think, pretty smart, is you're going to have inherent flaws in any driver, any kind of driver. So if you know what they are, then you can kind of compensate for that and do some of these things with the higher quality crossover network, and compensate for the shortcomings of, say, balanced armatures, where you would get, some people say that there's a balanced armature kind of sound, a timbre, and the P8 doesn't have that. So obviously whatever they're doing is working, and they can use lesser expensive balanced armatures without sacrificing sound. So the high dampening air pressure balance technology, that's pretty interesting one. I tried to find more I get fascinated by some of those things. And it does look like there is a little tube in the nozzle, and there is also a pressure relief hole. No one seemed to have mentioned that anywhere in the in any reviews. It's really hard to see. It's right there at the end, and there's a teeny little hole in the black resin. I don't even think you can see it. You can't get it. You can't see it. But there's a little vent. So, and high dampening. So, I understand the principle behind the high dampening, and a lot of this technology, because it trickles down. The RLC crossover network, this is the same kind of stuff used in high-end home audio forever. And it's easier to manage drivers when you can control the frequencies of what that driver is doing. So instead of just letting that driver go full hog willy-nilly on a set of frequencies, it's more controlled. And if you can do that, you can, again, focus what it does best and eliminate some of the things that it doesn't do. So the long tubes, why would you do that? Why, and I understand the principle behind it. I hope I'm not boring you. It's kind of like when you do ported enclosures. By the certain volume of air in the tube, you're actually tuning that low frequencies to a certain set and below. And I think that's kind of what they're doing here as well. So the 8mm dynamic driver is kind of really tuned quite low. And then the two balanced armatures are helping off on lower mid-range. So I thought that was a really interesting choice, because dynamic drivers, we know what they do well, and same as balanced armatures. I mean, it's nice to have the little bit of extra note weight that dynamic drivers bring to the table, and for certain, it puts it in here. As same as balanced armatures, fast, snappy, mid-bass, accurate, tight, all those words are ones you would use to describe it as well. So the balanced pressure, again, there's a whole lot of technology, I think, that goes into this, and it's quite shocking that this is $370 US. If this was US, if this was Singapore, if this was Japan, if this was Canada, this would be way, way more, thousands, right? Because we can't do what these guys do for that price. And it's quite affordable. Now, all of that put together, does it translate to sound? How does it sound? And that's really the big one. And I'm happy to report that the AFUL P8, from now on I'm calling it the P8. So instead of being called out, it's not pronounced this way. I don't care. I didn't name it. The P8 is absolutely worth the money. If you are looking for a monitor-like tuning. Okay? What the hell does that mean? Well, on my desk sitting beside me is a set of Atom Audio monitors. Monitor-like tuning means to me, and I think in general, that they're neutral. There's no added sugar, no added salt, preservatives, bass, treble, mid-range, nothing. It is the way it was recorded with no coloration added to the sound. P8 does this, probably making it the absolute best value for a monitor like I am on the market in 2023. Let's talk a bit about packaging. Sure, why the hell not? Comes in a nice box. I mean, they did a lot of stuff right. I mean, there's a lot of... If there was a whole bunch of packaging and fluff in here that made it super pricey, then I would call it out, honestly. But I think they added enough in here to give it good value. I mean, you know, you open it up, and I like these little fold open things, and the IMs are there presented in a box, and little warranty card, and the case is nice, and open this up underneath and you got your tips. So nothing to complain about there for, you know, that. I will say one thing though. I mean, you get a nice little case that's different from normal, and with the factory single-ended only cable, and the ear tips goes in there quite nice. You know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see manufacturers all include one of these little mesh pouches, so it still would fit, but when you're in there, this still goes in there, and your IMs aren't going to bang around. Next one, guys. Throw that in as an adder. I am... let's just talk about this. Anything over $100, in my personal opinion, should give you at least an option for more than single-ended. Give me two options, and please, 3.5 and 4.4. That's all I really ask. Or don't put in a cable and let me do my own cable. I would rather you take out this money, take out $10. Even the case, take that out. I don't need it. And make this more affordable to give me that, or give me an option at least to go to 4.4. Are you looking for that sound? What does that sound translate to your ears? To my ears? Well, if we were to talk about how does the P8 sound? How does it sound? I mean, well, it sounds like what I pumped into it. That's exactly what it sounds like. The bass, there's bass when there is bass in the mix of the music. When it's present, it's not overdone, it's not lacking. There's more sub bass over mid bass, and you can tell the quality of the driver sounds good. When you turn it up, it doesn't distort, it doesn't change its sound, it doesn't bag out, you know, quite well done. Mids, neutral tonality, okay? So neutral tonality means, again, and neutral position. So neutral tonality is not warm, not dark, not thin, and not bright, okay? Neutral position means it's not too forward in the mix. That means that it's not primarily what you're going to hear, and then you're going to hear some bass and some high end to enhance the vocals. It's neutral, so you get the equal amount of bass, instruments, sparklies, vocals, all together. The slight dip at 2.5K, and I'll pull up a graph to show you some of that. And I was just seeing, and this didn't come into play until I threw a different set into comparison, and I was like, what is that 2.5K little dip doing? And I threw the EQ from the HIFIGO on there, and it changes vocals a little bit, not in a terrible way, but and it may be a limitation of the drivers, or maybe just the way they wanted it tuned. But I found if without that 2.5K little dip, I think the P8 sounds better. Not that I really, I used to EQ everything when I started off in this hobby to get to understand a bit more of what I like and where I liked my sounds. And over the time, I've stopped doing that. And my philosophy now is that if I have to EQ something to make it sound the way I want it to, then that's not for me. And then I'll look for something else. The treble. Well extension, good air, and because it has those 3 BAs doing the highs, it really lends itself to letting you pick out instruments, details, micro nuances that you can pick up. So in the P8, if you were, again, looking for a monitor-like set that wasn't massive kilo buck, and to do what these do, it's a really good value. So, staging, it's intimate. It's not crazy 3D, but it's definitely better than average from what I've listened to. Good width, good height. Depth is still center of head. So, not really projecting a really deep stage forward or behind you. Again, keeping that neutral tonality going through the whole theme here, right? Dynamics. So micro dynamics, macro dynamics. Here is where I am talking about if you were listening to a really quiet passage, and then all of a sudden a big crash hits, right? And what you're listening to, can that translate that to more excitement that I'm trying to present into the music, whether I be mixing it in or live, or, you know, you're in the middle of a song, the singer just belts out a yell, right? I was listening to some live earlier, and I love that. But the P8 doesn't do that. That's one of its shortfalls, because it's so ruler flat in its frequency response that you're not going to get a whole bunch of dynamics, because there won't be a big differential between big bass hits and a lot of high cymbal crashes, right? So softer passages and louder passages in the middle of a song isn't going to be as dynamic. That's what I mean by that. I listen to a variety of different music. I don't have one genre of music or library per se. So my reviews are really based on whatever I decided to listen to came up, and how does it sound overall. I guess if you were looking for it's a different way of reviewing, I think, products. If you were looking for things that play well for your library, it's a good frame of reference, right? For people going, oh yeah, okay, I listen to Stone Temple Pilots, and that's my jam, and it sounds great on there, so it'll sound good for me, and that's quite possible. But for me, I'm all over the place, so whether I caught myself listening to Royal Philharmonic Orchestra the other day for like 3 hours, and they had an album with the pop hits, doing pop classics and stuff like that. No vocals. And I just found myself really enjoying that. That was on the Pen on 10th. I had a wow moment there. It was pretty awesome. In music, again, I think the P8 did everything very well. Monitor like, again, no coloration there. So it's not adding any bass in to make it a bassy bass head. So the P8 isn't for, treble heads, and it's not for bass heads, and it's not definitely for vocal heads. So if you're looking for something that's, I guess I would recommend the AFUL P8 for somebody who does mixing and mastering. Really, I think that would be a great recommendation over just listening to music. So my absolute highest recommendation for that in mixing and mastering, I think, would be a wonderful IM if that's what you're looking for in your jam. Just to sum up the P8, I think this is a wonderful IM. I think it is excellent value, if in fact that is the tuning that you are trying to get. To keep that in mind. This is not I'm going to make some people mad here. This is not a musical set. Okay? This is something that I would not pick up on a daily to listen to music. I would, nor would I use this to reset my senses after listening to different IAMs. Why? Well, because I honestly simply don't enjoy them. There you be. And that's our big thing about music, isn't it? And why we make these purchases and why we buy these products is that we want to enjoy what we're listening to. So it does everything well. The P8 does nothing bad. I can't fault it for a single damn thing. The bass, the mids, the treble, the extension, the stage, the shell shape is gorgeous. Everything they've done, the price, fantastic. P8, AFUL, great job. I am super psyched to see what you could do in a more musical set. Now that I think you've mastered it. The P5, the P8, you've got that down. Now, I'd love you to spread your wings and change it up a little bit and with a little bit of different tuning. So I'm super stoked, and I think they did a fantastic job, and I say bravo. Way you go. Let's talk about one more. And I did this review not long ago. And this had to do with and I was feeling a bit spicy when I got these because now this is the Juzz this is the Flame version. And this was bought with a kind of a collaboration with them and that Angel DAC store on AliExpress, and that guy is pure bullshit liar. So buy this from the Global 01 store called the Juzz 41T. Please don't support scumbags. And this is a great IAM. And it's like, so this is $369. This is, I think, on sale for $150 US. So less than half. Here's a graph of the two. As you can see, they are very, very, very close. What this does, though, is a whole bunch of things. Now, back a sec. The P8 is absolutely, if you're looking for the most monitor-like IM bang for your buck, P8, hands down, winner, winner, winner. Okay? Versus the I'm going to call this the Flame or the 41T. Doesn't matter. It's the same IM. The Flame has an ability and the nicest actual cable I've ever received from an IM 4.4 optional, which I chose, and perfectly matched to this IM. That's a win without having to buy another cable in balanced right there. The vocals are smoother. Sonyan balanced armatures versus unknown brand. So here they went kind of the traditional route with proven drivers that I love. I know what they sound like the 2300 series. Sonyan, again. Listen, I want to tell you guys something, because every single video somebody has to comment about my pronunciation. Well, let me tell you a little secret. English is my second language. So deal. I'm not shitting you on that. The Juzz Ears Flame 41T is more musical. I would pick this up 100 times more than the P8. It has better bass. It has more sub bass. It has more bass in total. The bass on both are fantastic, by the way. You can't really fault it for that. Here's one of the big differences. If we looked at this graph, they're at that 2500 where the P8 has a dip. This one has a bump, where the pin still keeps going. This adds more information into the upper mids. Instruments I found, hi-hats, vocals in general just sounded better on the 41T. And I think that's a combination there of the bit of a tuning difference and the better quality drivers in the Juzz Ears. Resolution details go to the P8. No questions attached. Piano and strings, though, go to the 41T. So what are you prioritizing? Do you want monitor-like tuning, or do you want something that's going to add a little bit of color and be more musical? Right? Instrument separation, P8 by a tad. 3D holographic stage, giving it to the P8 again. On brutal, honest recordings, both IMs are truly excellent and call out shitty recordings. You can hear shitty recordings. You can tell clearly. So is it forgiving for that? No, neither one are. Bad recordings are going to sound even more bad, as long as you can appreciate that as well. So kind of an interesting comparison. The two are very graph very similarly. They don't sound at all like each other, but the Juzz Ears is just a way more musical sounding IM for less than half the price of a P8. And I really, in my video for the Juzz Ears, I probably didn't praise it as much. And it was really hard because I didn't have a frame of reference. I didn't have a comparison. I didn't have one that sounded kind of like that one. So if you don't have something to compare against, it's really hard to judge. But now that I have the P8, and I want to say thank you, actually, to HIFIGO for giving me a little bit of a deal on this one. And getting it ahead of the pack, though it takes me 3 weeks to get it shipped out here, but I appreciate it. So thank you very much for HIFIGO for doing that for me. And that is it for this video. I hope it was educational and gave you a little bit of more of an insight onto the P8. There is a massive amount of hype for this one, though I can't honestly see that many people wanting a monitor-like tuning out of your IM. And in fact, if that's, unless you're using it for that kind of feature, I think most of us would look for something more musical, whether we want our mids to be. And I don't know, I get this kind of feeling that some people still feel like a colored sound is wrong, and I don't think so at all. I said in one of my early videos that what is balance to me, what is neutral IM. Well, this is a neutral IM, and where the 41T flame is more of a balanced IM, where it has more of the mix in there, or a natural sound, because vocals sound more natural. Piano has more weight, and what it brings to the table is more of what makes me happy and what I'm looking for. So thank you very much. My next one coming up is really cool as well. It's the ISN Neo 5. And you don't have to watch my video for the H50, but I'm going to do a comparison against that, because that's kind of interesting. And then I'm going to play it against some big boys. I'm going to shoot it against the Pen-On 10th, maybe the Fan 2, and just give it a comparison to that. Again, more of a frame of reference. Thank you very much again, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I love you all, and have a good one. I'm out.